A 130-pound Dogo Argentino had been sitting in the same corner of the same kennel for 217 days. Every family walked past, every single one, until the day a 10-year-old girl broke from her family, walked straight down the aisle, and stopped. What she saw in that kennel is why this dog was never the same again. A 130-pound ghost walked the streets of Phoenix the night the raids happened. Pure white, pure muscle. A Dogo Argentino that most people crossed the street to avoid. But that night, it wasn't the street he needed to fear. It was the kennel that came next. When authorities broke up one of the largest underground dogfighting operations in the state, 19 dogs were seized. Ghost was among them. No collar, no records, just scars across his muzzle, and a look in his eyes that the shelter workers couldn't quite name. Not aggression, not fear, something quieter, something that had been waiting a long time. What they discovered at the intake center made the head veterinarian go silent for a full minute. Ghost wasn't just scarred, he was engineered for violence by someone who had spent years making sure he had no other identity. And yet, when the shelter worker knelt down to examine him that first night, Ghost lowered his massive white head and leaned it slowly against her knee. That was the last gentle thing most people noticed about him. For 7 months, nobody stopped at his kennel. Not once, not for longer than 3 seconds. He was too big, too white, too much of everything that makes people instinctively step back. Families walked past, volunteers glanced over. Even the staff who loved him couldn't get potential adopters to stay. They'd hear dogfighting seizure, and something would close in on their eyes. Ghost would watch them go, then turn around, walk to the back corner of his kennel, and sit perfectly still. He had been doing that for 217 days when the Reed family walked through the front doors. James and Nicole had made a plan. Families always make plans. We'll split up, look around, find the one that feels right, vote. Efficient, reasonable. The kind of logic that works fine until a 10-year-old named Ellie breaks from the group and walks straight down the center aisle without looking left or right and stops. Ghost was at the back of his kennel when she stopped. He turned slowly, ears up, and looked at her the way he'd looked at everyone else for 7 months. Ellie didn't move. James and Nicole found her 4 minutes later, standing exactly where she'd been, both hands wrapped around the chain link, forehead almost touching the metal. She hadn't called out, she hadn't made a sound. She was just there, completely still, the way Ghost was completely still, 2 feet separating them like they were both waiting for the other one to blink first. Ellie, Nicole touched her shoulder. We found ours. Come vote. Dad picked a beagle, I'm leaning toward the lab mix. We just need... Ellie didn't answer. I see you still haven't subscribed. Honestly, that breaks my heart. Hit that subscribe button now and don't miss what happens next. James crouched beside her. Hey, you hear Mom? He's been here a long time, Ellie said quietly. How do you know that? She pointed at the worn concrete in the corner of the kennel. 7 months of the same small circle paced down to nothing. A shelter worker named Marcus appeared behind them. He'd been watching from the end of the aisle. He knew this moment. He'd hoped for it 217 times, and it had never come. He cleared his throat. His name's Ghost. You want to know his story?
Marcus didn't soften it. He told them everything. The raid, the operation, the 19 dogs, the intake vet who went quiet for a full minute. He told them about the first night, about Ghost lowering his head on the worker's knee. He told them about the 7 months, the 217 days, every family that walked past. James and Nicole exchanged a look over Ellie's head, the kind of look parents give each other when they already know the argument is over. We'll need to talk about, Nicole started. We're taking him, Ellie said, still not turning around. Some stories are too good to keep to yourself. It wasn't a question, it wasn't even really directed at her parents. It was the same quiet certainty Ghost had when he leaned his head on the worker's knee that first night. The calm of someone who has decided something and is simply waiting for the rest of the world to catch up. Marcus was already reaching for the intake paperwork. Ghost crossed the threshold of the Reed house at 4:47 in the afternoon on a Tuesday in March. What happened next is difficult to describe to anyone who wasn't there. A 130-pound white Dogo Argentino, who had spent 7 months sitting in perfect stillness in a kennel corner, entered a suburban living room and exploded. He hit the couch first, then the rug. He knocked a ceramic vase off the side table, skidded across the hardwood, slammed into the coffee table, rebounded off the hallway wall, circled the kitchen island twice, and finally stood in the middle of the living room, chest heaving, tail a white blur, looking at the 4 stunned faces staring at him, as if he was surprised too. Ellie started laughing, then James, then Nicole. Ghost sneezed 3 times and knocked over a lamp. This is the kind of joy that deserves to be seen. It was the first time anyone in that house had heard that particular sound, a 130-pound pure white chaos, discovering at the age of 4 what it felt like to be home. Not a cage, not a kennel, not a fighting pit. A place where a vase could fall and nobody would flinch, where you could run until your nails scratched the hardwood, and the only consequence was laughter. He had been performing perfect stillness for 7 months. Turns out, underneath it, he had been saving all of this up. That was 2 years ago. The vase was never replaced. James calls the empty spot on the side table Ghost's signature. The rug has a permanent scuff mark near the far corner that Nicole stopped trying to clean after the first week. And every night, without fail, a 130-pound white dog who was once called too dangerous, too scarred, too much, falls asleep with his enormous head on the feet of a 10-year-old girl who saw a worn patch of concrete and understood everything she needed to know. Ghost found his people on day 218. Would you have stopped at his kennel or walked past? Tell me in the comments.